you'll be wearing your earbuds that you listen to your music with. They'll be tracking all your health biometrics in real time on your phone, telling you what you were listening to, when, how it affected your blood pressure, how it affected your sleep scores, how it affected all these different areas of your life in real time, and offering responsive solutions that will help you to return to that as an ongoing practice. So it won't be any more of, I think I like that one, and it was this, it was, and now what that's pushing the industry to do is to actually come up with all these different technologies that measure the efficacy of music on certain desired states, like, to relieve anxiety, or to, improve, sleep preparation, or to any of these. So there's a real push, because this is happening, and where it's going to just evolve into a normal piece where, because I can, basically, even with what we have now, but it's going to be not in the mainstream market, design into an earbud and your iPhone, basically enough technology to get most and more than the sensors you would have in a good hospital room. Maybe not at that clinical level, but enough to really send stuff to your doctor or do personalized precision medicine through music. So redefining the future of music as medicine.
Hey, everybody, and welcome. I am Morgan Giss-McDonald, founder, CEO of Paper Raven Books, and I have with us today a super special guest. He is the author of a brand new book called Amplified: Unleash Your Potential Through the Power of Music. And he knows a lot about music because this author is a multi-platinum selling record producer, Grammy-nominated songwriter, social entrepreneur, author, and award-winning filmmaker. I have with us today Frank Fitzpatrick. Thanks for being with us, Frank.
It's great to be here, Morgan. It's great to be here with you, and happy to be with everybody. So
we are so excited because you are launching this epic book, Amplified, and it's launching now, and this has been quite a while coming. I know you have a whole career in the music space, and this book is specifically about unleashing your potential through the power of music. Can you tell us a little bit about Amplified and why you wrote the book?
Well, I wrote it, it's been a long time coming. So, since I was young, I won't go into that story yet. We can talk about that later. But, to basically give people like you and the readers the knowledge and resources and ability to transform the way they experience and use music in their life, to take their life to a whole new level, to help them experience less stress, to help them focus better, to help them enjoy their relationships and make them stronger. There's not really an area of our life that we can't add music like this secret ingredient to a recipe, where we can basically up level and enhance our capacity to experience that part of our life and our relationship with the world around us and the society in which we live. And I've just watched over my career of 40 years, and even before that, even though everybody knows about music, most everybody likes music, it'd be hard pressed to find anybody who doesn't. We're not taught really how to use music to help us when we really need it, or to help us really thrive. How does music make us more successful in our career? How does it help us when we're having a hard time in relationships and bonding? How does it help us, when we're stressed and feeling depression? And how can we really actually use it in very practical and real ways? We're not taught this. It seems to me that there's a bit of a gap there, because for thousands of years it was used that way, and people are mainly taught how to perform and or to be to sell it as a commodity, which all of which are good, but is not the full range of human experience. And as I look at the future of where we can go with music and the intersection of human potential and what we're learning about health and where technology is going to bring that into play, I see a whole new threshold of which music will be. I think it's as important as any practices we're using now: meditation, exercise, and especially when you stack it. That's what we say. We stack neurological triggers, and not to get too complicated, but it's a great magic ingredient, and scientifically validated ingredient to add to any of those life experiences.
And I'm curious, Frank, when you think about your own sort of daily practice or seasons of your life where you've really leaned into music as something for you personally. I mean, sure, you've been doing music for decades professionally and award-winning and all that, but for your own peace of mind or sanity or well-being, like how do you integrate music into your own life?
Well, let me just like this. Now we're going to go back to the seed of where this came from, because I can honestly say if I didn't have music in my life as a kid, I wouldn't be alive today. And it had nothing to do with performing, and it had nothing to do. It just had to do with growing up, in Detroit at a very rough time, and the streets were pretty rough, and it was a pretty confusing time in the early '60s and early '70s, and music became my drug of choice, fortunately, because I lost a lot of friends to other ones, and I made a commitment at 12 years old that I was gonna when music, listening to Marvin Gaye scream in my ear with his beautiful voice, and watching young Michael Jackson dance, and inspire me, and listening to the Beatles or Aretha Franklin, all of which were Detroit except for the Beatles. That was really what saved me from really could have been a very ill fate. And so when I think about today, and fast forward, and I look around and people are looking at COVID and what's going on, I go, well, this looks a lot like when I was in Detroit, and Detroit kind of collapsed from being the top city in the world, middle class city in the world, to the tech center of the world. It was the Silicon Valley of the of the era, and just to going to 30% unemployment, and places boarded up, and really rough times, and people feeling very cut off and isolated. And I go, this is really familiar to me. And when I look at what's being offered for solutions, and everybody's working hard to bring solutions and to help people with their mental health and these crises that are happening beyond the actual COVID as a virus. I still see the same gap. I still see the gap that there are ways we can be using music in a really effective, validated, proven way to help people through these challenges and to help them thrive going forward. So to me, it's really important to get the book out. I've been on a mission for a long time. Built a nonprofit organization, had campaign around the globe, done talks all over the world, done think tanks, helped leaders in many different ways to integrate music into healthcare and education and different aspects. But I can't think of a more important time now. And for me, the book allows me to get it into people's hands, as many people as possible. And that's really my number one goal, is to get it into as many people's hands as possible, because I'm confident that if they receive it and they read it, and they even take some piece out of it, they'll find some way to either help them through a challenge, or to thrive in their relationships, to help their families, as a mother with their kids, as an entrepreneur trying to build a business, as a healthcare worker, or somebody trying, and then the vision of where we can go in the future, to me, is just awe-inspiring.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Well, thank you for giving us some insight into your childhood, and why this has become so important to you. I mean, that desire, that motivation is really present in the book. I mean, yes, there's a lot of ways that music can influence our lives, and you sort of break that down, and there's a lot of research to kind of demonstrate the neuroscience and the biology and even the anthropology and the culture behind music. And really, when it comes down to it, I feel very deeply in the pages of Amplify that you want us to really apply this and like integrate it into what we're doing day by day. And I'll just share one thing from reading the book and going through this process with you, Frank, is that I'm a mom, 4 kids, right, and running a business and all that. And I had grown up playing the piano, and my husband's a violinist, not professionally anymore. He had a BM and then went on to do something practical. He became an attorney. But we both have sort of an appreciation for music, but have lost kind of the daily practice. And so we have a keyboard that sits by the family dinner table that theoretically someone could someday play, but doesn't really get sort of played very often. And of course, the joke is that when one of the kids starts to play, my husband with his musical ears, like, oh, that was very dissonant. And so one of the exercises that you gave inside the book is like, look, if you want to reconnect with that musician in yourself, play black notes on the keyboard. Just the black notes, because those will harmonize. And you don't even need like a plan. You can just sort of sit down at the keyboard and just play black notes until you kind of like feel the music. And we did that, and it was so fun. Like, everybody had fun. The kids
And
had
your husband
been.
didn't get mad.
My husband was not sort of covering his ears.
Right.
It was really fun just to see what each of the kids kind of came up with. And ever since then, it's been months. They will occasionally just pull off the cover and they'll start playing. And if dad's not home, then they can play whatever. And the oldest is starting to ask about reading music. And so it was just one of those things where the instrument was in the house, but it just wasn't being integrated into our family. And it's opened up other conversations. The kids are like, oh, while we're making dinner, can we listen to this song or that song? Or can I hear what a trumpet sounds like? And then we ask Spotify, to play a song. So it's amazing what it's opened up sort of relationally and with very simple sort of practical exercises. So have you heard from other people about like kind of coming back to an appreciation for music after being away for a while?
Yeah, that's a big piece of a lot of people get, because we're brought into our relationship with music is, like I said before, typically around performance so you study it and then you try to get to a certain level. If you're a violinist, you try to get to first chair so you can play in a first chair in an orchestra. If you don't make that, what do you do with your life? You go become something else, and then you kind of have this bad taste in your mouth. Yeah. But it was, and then same thing with, people take piano lessons for 15 years and can't go near a piano. It's uncomfortable for them. Actually, it's because it brings back all this, like, it wasn't an enjoyable experience. And it's not that can't be enjoyable and that's not important if you want to become a performer, but we shouldn't limit the pathway of people experiencing music dependent on that they have to become a performer. That's like anybody who plays sports has to win the Olympics. There's a lot of reasons to play sports, and just have fun with it. Even if you're not that good at it, doesn't really matter. So Beethoven says, not to sidestep this a little bit, but Beethoven says, music's a form of higher intelligence that understands humankind, but the humankind's yet to understand. So I actually switch our relationship to music, that music has a relationship with us. And music wants to have a relationship with us. And music's part of our DNA, and it's constructed in a particular way. So there's, you learn in the book about the 7 faces of music and the way it can show up in their life. There's a children's book coming that they can relate to each of those characters and have them help them out, whether it's the teacher, the healer, the friend, and music shows up this way for you. So music wants to have a relationship with us. So you shift from playing music or performing music into music, allowing music to play you. Because ultimately, if there's any lesson that comes out of this, is that you're ultimately the instrument. We are the instrument, and we are ultimately, the reader is the gift. So it's not what they have to do unto music to do something in their lives. It's like what music can help them do unto and for themselves, So, and, going back to the Black Notes, exercise was, thank you, Graham Nash, for the song that inspired it. It's, but it allows you to not have to think about performing and to just close your eyes and allow the music to connect to you, almost like a meditation. Very much like a meditation, right? So we don't sit down in a meditation and go, okay, I gotta knock it out of the park with this meditation today. No, we go, okay, how do I get to this space, this place? And many musicians who are so trained in the traditional ways don't get to that place unless they stay at it for 40 years, 50 years, and then they get to a level of mastery where they no longer ever have to think about their performance because it's gone. They're never thinking about that part anymore. Like it's like a sports player, like a LeBron James. They're then they're in the zone, and they're in a space where they can receive the music fully. And that's like a mastery level. So you can bring somebody into that mastery experience without having musicianship. It gives a whole new way for them to enter their relationship with music, and that's really ultimately, out of all the science in it and all the other lessons and all the stories and all the people that I've worked with and learned from, at the end of the day, I want the reader to come away with this relationship with music that's been transformed or opened up in a way that really has a real impact on their perception of themselves, their capacity in the world, their relationship with others. And there's a number of exercises, you talked about your family, that you can do with family members or with relationship, especially between generations, to build stronger understandings of each other through music, because we can talk about the music we love easier than we can talk about our feelings and our experiences. Yeah. And so there's many ways to open the gates to these, kind of touchy and tenuous and places in our lives where we can actually break them down and live a much more fulfilling, exciting life. Yeah. Again, it's we're talking relationships now, and that's just one avenue. I mean, we can talk about, how if you are going for the gold, you can improve your performance in sports, and, and if you are, having some sort of depression or, anxiety, how you can go for that, or sleep trouble, or if you want to meditate, learn to meditate with music. If you want to learn to sleep, deal with sleep issues. I mean, there's a lot of, anecdotes. And I was also just, you didn't ask me, but I'm because this is important, because I also work on the faculty of exponential medicine, and I work in health and technology with some pretty big leaders in the field, in addition to what I've done in the past in entertainment. And so the book has to stay be at a certain standard, So yes. It has, one of my mentors and the heroes in the field, Dr. Daniel Levitin, the leading neuroscientist, wrote "This Is Your Brain on Music," wrote the foreword for me, and it's been vetted by all these neuroscientists. But I didn't want it to be academic, so that's where I bring my experience in entertainment and storytelling and try to bring that in. But I did have to have it be validated. So that I wasn't just making stuff up or pulling stuff that in the research that wasn't really going to serve people that hasn't been time tested and proven, right?
So within, you're referencing Singularity University, exponential medicine. So within kind of this emerging innovation, technology, health side of music, what are some things that you have seen that you're excited about, that you've maybe discovered or that has been discovered in the last few years that's pretty exciting and promising?
Well, there's we could go a long ways on this, so I'll try to keep it condensed.
Just give us one. There's tons in the book, so if people get the book.
I write a whole column on Forbes on this, that if people are interested, they can go to amplifiedfuture.com, and that'll take them to the Forbes column. And I write about what's happening at the intersection of human potential, exponential technologies, and music. But and there's one chapter in the book, but what's exciting to me is where we can go, because basically, not in the not too distant future, you'll be wearing your earbuds that you listen to your music with. They'll be tracking all your health biometrics in real time on your phone, telling you what you were listening to, when, how it affected your blood pressure, how it affected your sleep scores, how it affected all these different areas of your life in real time, and offering responsive solutions that will help you to return to that as an ongoing practice. So it won't be any more of, I think I like that one, and it was this, it was, and now what that's pushing the industry to do is to actually come up with all these different technologies that measure the efficacy of music on certain desired states, like, to relieve anxiety, or to, improve, sleep preparation, or to any of these. So there's a real push, because this is happening, and where it's going to just evolve into a normal piece, where because I can basically, even with what we have now, but it's going to be not in the mainstream market, design into an earbud and your iPhone, basically enough technology to get most and more than the sensors you would have in a good hospital room. Maybe not at that clinical level, but enough to really send stuff to your doctor or do personalized precision medicine through music. So redefining the future of music as medicine.
So you guys, if you're watching right now and your curiosity has been piqued, good news is you can actually grab a free copy of Amplified today. paperravenbooks.com/amplified. They'll take you straight over to the page. You can download a free copy of the ebook. You can get any other version of the book while you're there. Go ahead and grab it today while it's free. Even if you're gonna, read it over the weekend or whatever, get it today while you can. And this is, so you just cracked open the whole health health
Yes.
and well-being. And, we sort of talked about it can help with meditation, anxiety, sleep, performance. What are some of the things that people come back to you? So you've been working in this field and teaching and being a part of the research of this field for many, many years. Is there any practice or discipline that people kind of come back to you and say, Frank, this was really helpful for me in regards to music in their lives?
I think probably the main one is the perspective shift.
Mm.
Like taking the expectation of that they have to do music rather than receive music.
Yeah.
And then just being able to process kind of, you don't have to be into, neuroscience, but if you are, being able to kind of process that what you're listening to is doing things to your subconscious. So it's like a lot of people get really excited in talks when I was a film composer for years and still do some of that. And in 30 seconds to a minute, I can completely change the way you think and feel about anything, but any image you're looking at by the way I change the music. And so this is all this, but that's not just happening when you watch a film. That's happening when you walk into a store. That's happening when you walk into your house. That's happening, So we did a pilot program in the U.S. LAUSD for 11, 12-year-olds, which is the formation of personality using music, but for primarily to teach them to use it as a social and emotional learning tool. And the exercises that they loved was when I broke down the characters of music, the 7 faces, to the teacher, the healer. I won't go through all 7. The muse for creativity. And then I asked them to write about a relationship that they've had in their life with one of them. When people write those stories, you'd be the stuff that comes out and the memories that they had, and when they can define it into something, and again, start to look at it as more of a persona in their life, a spirit in their life, something that cares and wants good for them. It's a bit of a stretch for some people to think about, but kids grab it pretty well, and that's pretty transformative. Yeah.
Well, I know for sure writers, I work with writers all the time. They have a relationship with music. You mentioned the muse, but certainly there's a sense that, well, of course music is going to influence your mind, your creativity, your cognition, your mood. So yeah, it becomes a question of, are we going to be intentional about it? If we know that it's happening, are we going to turn our attention to it and sort of, almost recognize and be grateful for how music can be so powerful in our lives. It's fascinating. So I'm curious, Frank, from a writer's perspective, you were combining pretty serious research academic research along with your stories and other people's stories, and even sort of historical stories, to make this narrative about music. What was that writing process like for you?
It was a long one, but I'm going to give you one more of the exercises because that might be more helpful to people, and then I'll come back to that, I promise, because I know people are always interested in the process. But there's another exercise or setup in there called the power playlist. So basically, it's very, many people do this in their lives already, but I just try to break it down really simple. So we organize playlists that become the way of the world, and so it's good but if we're thinking about music as a tool to help us in functional and practical ways in our life, then we can organize our music by that, as opposed to by 70s soul hits and the music for tonight's party. And so I have this acronym called FIRM, which is focus, inspiration, relax, and move or motivate. And so we set up so that people take their songs and they basically put them in one of those categories, so that they have a playlist that they know that when they need, like, I'm down in the dumps, I just need to be inspired. They've vetted this playlist. They don't have to go choose which artists they're going to figure out. They don't have to go through all the ads. They don't have to go through. Yeah. They just go to, okay, I know that this is, and it changes, and they can update it. But it's and then if they need to focus and do work and get some writing done, like a book, and so they like to work to background music, then they have that laid out. So it's just having these like power buttons. Yeah. That like, okay, now I'm going to go for my run, or I'm going to do my 5-minute dance because I'm tired of not being able to go out to the gym, and they just know, like, they don't have to go into this whole thought process, open up their, go through all these apps and try to figure it all out. It's a very straight away thing. So that's been really helpful for people, they've found.
And I want to just sneak in a reminder that if you're interested, you're like Black Notes, like earbud wearables, power playlists. This all sounds interesting. This book is jam-packed. So just go ahead and grab your copy now while you're here and thinking about it. paperravenbooks.com/amplified. It's free today. paperravenbooks.com/amplified. And then Frank, back to the writing question.
Right. So the writing, yeah. So the writing for this book was interesting, or not, maybe not interesting, but started 10 years ago. Because 10 years ago, Arianna Huffington asked me to write a column on a campaign, a global campaign I was starting called through my nonprofit called Why Music. So I basically started writing about all these subject matters, and I was speaking on them and doing TEDx talks and kind of traveling around the world. And then at one point I said, well, I've been writing a few years now for this column, but people like blogs they read, they go by, they're almost like social media now, right? It's like, how can I like consolidate this into a way that can be really useful to people? And I started to do it. The next stage was I was invited by the government of Brazil, because they implemented the first mandatory music program in Brazil. The most musical country in the world never had mandatory music education in the public schools. So they asked me to help with that and with building the technology side of it as well. And so I had to go, okay, well, what am I going to put together for them besides the technology and a curriculum? I said, I better, let me organize this stuff into a way that is actually useful. So there's been a number of stages that even though it would have affected 43 million kids, would have gone to 240,000 schools. It went up in flames, like many projects of that enormity, but it was a catalyst to move the writing, to move okay, how do I get it into people's hands? Even if it's, through this book now. So, and then at some point I had to go, okay, I got to write a serious book. It's like, well, not serious. I got to get serious about writing a book.
Yep.
And then I really dedicated the time and got lots of advice from editors and writers, and kind of had them review stuff I was working, what's good, what's not, mostly not. So and you just and then I had to get into the routine of, okay, I don't have all day, so it's like, okay, if I don't get 2 hours of writing, 3 hours of writing, then before the day starts, it's not going to happen. So you hear that from a lot of writers, unless you have the luxury of hanging out and writing all day. But you have family, a company. It's like, you write books. It's like you have to find like, okay, I'm going to dedicate this window for. And then something really interesting. So then I got, I go, okay, I'm going to go with this, put this book out, and I got an agent. I went the route of the agent, and then he was shopping out to publishers, and then COVID hit.
Yeah.
And then and then he had to close down his division of the agency, because they represented mostly us as speaking authors, and that's kind of where the revenue comes from, not so much from books. And so I got everything back in my lap, and for me it was disappointing, but probably the best thing that ever happened, because I spent the first year of COVID completely rewriting the book.
Wow.
And it needed it. And you don't really want to go back there, because it's just like, it's rewriting, at least for me, is like the not the happy experience.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't be, I would have never hit that mark that I can now go, okay, I'm proud of this. I'm going to be proud of this in 20 years. I'm gonna, I'm not just putting a book out to put a book out. I really want to be one of the, the key memorable books like Daniel Levitin's was 10, 12 years ago with This Year Brain on Music. I want to, be one of the seminal books in the field, not for the notoriety of that, but just to really be useful to people. And so it helped me to really go to the next level with the writing. And that was really hard, but really probably the most rewarding in the end, because then you come away, you're going, okay, I've given it everything that I can do, and I'm now really proud of it. And I thought that was also really important, because, now that we're in this hybrid publishing, and you become a company, I've now become a media company,
Right.
Without intending to, which is all has its benefits and disadvantages. We won't get into that, but it's really important. It's a lot of work, and it's, the real work, I hate to say it, I spent 10 years in the beginning, but the real work starts when you're done with the book, and you got to find ways to get it through the noise and get it and fulfill the mission, because the mission doesn't get fulfilled until it's in the hands of the reader and in the heart and minds of the reader. And without that, it's just a, it's an exercise and a writing exercise, but that's not my mission. My mission is really to get it in the hands of readers. So now is the real work. And this is where, I hope, we're working together, and we, working with lots of others, and and my hope is that we get this into millions of people's hands and other tools and resources to make this happen in the world.
Yes, it starts with getting it out to the readers, for sure. That's where the book begins to truly live. Right. So Frank, you've walked through this whole process, 10 years plus of, deciding to put a book out. I'm curious, now that you've walked through this process, is there anything that you wish you'd known earlier, or any words of advice or encouragement that you might give to a younger version of yourself, knowing what you know now?
I think I would have, well, I can't say I would have started writing earlier. I might have started writing books earlier. I wrote very young. I published my first poetry in like 10, 11 years old or something. But I think the first thing that comes to my mind, and I have to admit it, is discipline. The discipline of daily practice, the willingness to throw something away, the acceptance that you're going to be, I love what, nobody seems more disciplined than Stephen Kotler. If you don't know who Stephen Kotler is, he's a great author, and, and he's, he describes his writing process, and you would think, well, this is the guy, he's the king of optimization and flow. and he describes it, and there's always a point, he says, where I'm laying face down on my office floor, pounding my fist, going, I don't know what I'm doing. What am I doing? And just know that that's part of the process. You're going to create. I mean, I fortunately knew that from writing music and doing film for so long. And you have your good moments, and then there's a lot of, kind of slogging through, and it's like, until you break through. But just to know that it's just keeping at it, and that you're not, and writing the book writing a book is very hard, and hard things help us grow and be more creative and more, adaptable to other challenges in the life. So bring it on.
That is perfect. Well, you guys, I want to give you one more encouragement to go get Amplified, Unleash Your Potential Through the Power of Music. You can grab a free copy today, paperravenbooks.com/amplified. Go ahead and do that now while you're here and while you're thinking about it. And Frank, thank you. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for writing this book. It's been, I'm sure, a labor of love and mission and work and all sorts of aspects of yourself just poured into one book, and you're really giving it to us as a gift. So thank you for writing Amplified.
Thank you very much, and thank you to you who are listening and watching. And my invitation is to if you like the work, join us in the movement. It's a powerful movement. Music's a fun way to have a movement, and we can really make a big difference in the world. And that's that's much more important to me than the numbers of books. It's the number of differences and impact and the ripple effect we can create. And it's not I by myself that's going to do that. It's every reader who kind of comes forth and with this and resonates with it. Should they, and then carries it into their life, to transform the way the world experiences and uses music.
Yeah. So good. Thank you, Frank. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And
thanks, everybody.
See you guys next time. Bye.
Bye now.
And cut.
What do we do?